This evening we're going on to the next main outworking of Satan's kingdom and Satan's opposition to God and to the Church of Jesus Christ. And we're going to deal with something that I have headed, the Spirit of Antichrist. We need to turn first of all to the passage in 1 John where this is primarily described. 1 John chapter 2, beginning at verse 18. 1 John 2:18. Little children, it is the last hour. And as you've heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour. Notice that the advent and the working of the Spirit of Antichrist is going to intensify the closer we get to the end of the age. They, that's these Antichrists, went out from us, us being the Church of Jesus, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out that they might be made manifest, that none of them were of us. But you have an anointing from the Holy One, and you know all things, or an alternative reading, you all know, which is probably the right one. I have not written to you because you do not know the truth, but because you know it, and that no lie is of the truth. Who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. Whoever denies the Son does not have the Father either. He who acknowledges the Son has the Father also. We see there that, let me first of all try and just briefly explain the real meaning of that strange phrase, Antichrist. You need to bear in mind, first of all, that the word Christ is from a Greek word, Christos, which exactly corresponds to the Hebrew word Mashiach, from which we get Messiah. It's amazing how many Jews and Christians do not realize that Messiah and Christ are two different words for the same thing. So when we say Antichrist, that means anti-Messiah. And it's probably easier for us to get the picture if we use the phrase Messiah. So, and then again, the preposition, I hope you know what a preposition is. If you don't worry. You can get by without it. Heaven is open to those who don't know what prepositions are. But anyhow, the preposition anti is a Greek preposition, and it has two meanings, and both of them apply. First of all, it means against. So the first operation is against Messiah. The second meaning is in place of. And so the ultimate purpose is to put a false Messiah in place of the true Messiah. So this force operates first of all by excluding Messiah, and secondly, by replacing him by a false Messiah. So the total operation is in two phases. And when you begin to recognize that, I think you will see that the Spirit of Antichrist is extremely active almost throughout the whole professing church. Ruth and I have friends in America who belong to a church which would be called in the old line evangelical stream. I don't want to name the denomination. And they said to me one day, they said, in our church, you can talk about Buddha, you can talk about Socrates, you can talk about Plato, you can talk about Martin Luther King, and no one gets upset. But if you talk about Jesus, everybody gets upset. Now what is that? It's the Spirit of Antichrist, see? It's in its first phase, getting rid of the true Messiah. But we all need to bear in mind that that's not the end of Satan's purpose. His purpose is to replace the true Messiah by a false Messiah. So that's what we're dealing with. It becomes obvious when you see that this particular operation of Satan is only applicable where Jesus has been preached. You cannot reject Jesus if you've never heard about Jesus. So witchcraft is different. Witchcraft belongs to the whole fallen human race. It is, in fact, as I said, the universal religion of the fallen race, with many different manifestations and forms and ceremonies. But Antichrist can only be manifested where Christ has first been preached. In the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness at the beginning of his ministry, it's recorded in Matthew's Gospel that he said to Satan, "Get behind me," which is the normal way to translate it. But it is perfectly possible to translate that, "Follow behind me." And I believe that is a spiritual reality, that wherever Jesus and the gospel are proclaimed, God will permit the opposite claim to follow. In fact, humanity is going to be forced to choose between the true Messiah and the false. It's part of God's way of dealing with us that he doesn't exclude the false options. And it's our responsibility to make the right choice. I think this is extremely relevant to our generation. I believe this generation, in one form or another, is going to have to make a decision, true Messiah or false Messiah. And the spirit of Antichrist is extremely active, much more than most of you have any idea, pressuring us into the wrong decision.